Hello and welcome to the Gnostic Warrior radio show and podcast, broadcasting from GnosticWarrior.com in San Diego, California, to around the world. I'm your host Mo, and today on the show we have modern day shaman Bart Smith. Bart is a real shaman who's been initiated into the secret mysteries of shamanism in the jungles of Peru. He's traveled extensively around the world, and he currently lives in Sweden, where he has an academy there, and also here in the States in Nevada. This is a great podcast on shamanism, and I'm sure you're going to learn a lot of great things in his trips with ayahuasca. But before we get into this great show, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
For a great mobile website by expert web designers, visit WeCreateWebDesigns.com. Get your website now for only $79 at WeCreateWebDesigns.com.
Hello, Bart. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mo. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. And you're in Sweden, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Great.
A couple hours north of Stockholm. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were briefly just talking about that before I started recording here, and I just wanted to keep it personal. What made you decide to leave the States here and move to Sweden?
Well, the main reason is to have our third child, my wife and me. We like to have dual citizenship and dual language for our children. So my wife being Swedish, we got pregnant again, and that was our deciding factor to come back this time. But we stayed longer than we usually do.
Bart, you're known as a modern shaman. Before we get into that great work that you're doing now in shamanism, can you briefly educate the audience on your path in life up until now?
Sure. As I was telling you, I grew up in Pasadena, Altadena area, the Southern California region. And I grew up during the 60s and 70s, and we had Vietnam, and we had the Van Halens, Eddie and Alex, and those guys were friends. So we had a lot of wild times and fast-paced life, and I kept that fast-paced life up and became a contractor builder throughout the years. And with all my experiences in construction, and I was a sports enthusiast, I raced, I flew, you know, we did high jumping and stuff like that back in the day, and I had many injuries, dirt bikes, surfing, climbing, all these things that we did, and they kind of compounded. And I was building in Santa Fe, New Mexico, when I was cleaning my truck out at the dump one day, and a very large truck crashed into me and sent me to the bed of my truck, and I broke my wrist in the corner. The wheel well went into my spine, and this is how my path changed. And I got involved with medical for the first time to heal my wounds. Up to that point, I just figured I'd heal and kept going with any injury I'd incurred. But anyway, I was on heavy pain medications and anti-inflammatory and antidepressant and Valiums, and all these combined. I read an article that told me what they did to my liver, and I stopped. So this is when I started looking for alternative ways to take care of myself. And being a martial artist my whole life, that's the only thing I knew to do was to train. But I had another accident in San Francisco, which at the time I was linked to many people that were not only in the martial arts but in the healing arts, and I had already begun a journey of self-introspection to see where my life had been and where I wanted to go. So I was in therapy with a gentleman, an Israeli gentleman, a lovely guy who is also trained with the shamans of Central America and North America. And he combined Jungian therapy with the shamanic way. And that's where I started in '87. looking at my own life, healing up my spine and body from a new injury. And, one thing led to another. I studied all the things that got my body well, and Tai Chi I had to switch to that because, again, I had a wrist injury. I couldn't do the other martial arts I was doing. And life kind of moved me in a direction to where I found my path, or it found me, really.
And when did you begin training as a shaman?
Well, that was actually never like an intention. It was just it was something that came out of the experience I was having taking care of myself. So I would say my whole life, actually, in one way, my whole life, because we bring everything to the table that we need to look at to heal or get clear on. And but when it really became clear that that was happening, I was involved with the process of becoming one, that was about 95, 96, I think it was. I'd been training with another line of shamanic work that was with the Shipibo Indians and other Indian tribes. I wound up with another teacher, also a very high-level martial artist, ninjutsu, and out of San Francisco, and he and I had a real connection, and he did even more of a natural medicine man journey with the medicine plants of the Peruvian jungle and Ecuadorian and Bolivia. He'd been there for many, many years, and he invited me to Peru to work with him and his teachers. And on about the third meeting with his maestro, curandero, Don Benjamin, I was asked if I wanted the higher levels of the work, and I said, well, yeah. I thought that's why we were all there, and that night it started, and that night was a pivotal point. That was the moment that I knew that something had changed, as far as becoming one that actually did this kind of work.
Was this in 1998 when you went to Peru?
I started I have to document it. I have to go back in my notes. It's 96, 97, I started going, and then we went to different places, Belize. We had to fly the teachers out of Peru because there was problems with the cocaine wars and stuff like that way out in the jungles where we were working. So, yeah, I would say it was about 96, 97 when I got initiated that evening, and then after that, then my teacher kept the process going, and I worked with him up until I moved to Sweden, actually, 5 years ago. And I'll continue to work with him if I go back. Yeah.
Bart, before we get into the great work you're doing now as a modern-day shaman, can you explain to the audience exactly what a shaman is?
Well, I can only speak from, I feel, my limited experience. I believe it's someone who's done the work to connect with himself or herself, and with that, connect with the environment and work with the natural ways of energy, the earth, plants, and then we have all the animals, and they are all teachers. And there's many different traditions that are out there. So my tradition was one that was just transmitted. It wasn't something that could be taught or learned. It had to be in the work. And so I would say that that would be my description, because once you have it's like the Tai Chi. I look at Tai Chi as a form of shamanism, because we're working with the directions, north, south, east, and west. And then we work with the 8 directions of the Pakwa, and then we also work with the universal forces and earth energy too. And in one way, I like to tell my students and you and your listeners that I see everybody as a shaman, in their own life. It's their sensitivity, their awareness, and their growth, and how they apply that to their life. And at every level, we're doing the best we can with that. So then when you get to a point where if you're going to be doing the work with groups, then there's a level of initiation that takes place. And it's like a seed that's planted in you by the teacher and the tools that you're given to work with. And you know when you're ready because the work takes place and you're present to it and it happens. And this might seem a little vague, so I would say a shaman is somebody, it's somebody who's, as I said, working with their own world, their own sensitivity, and their own alchemy, developing themselves inner and outer, and then taking that and connecting with the world. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear to me. Basically, it's connecting, the material self with the spiritual, then also the alchemical energies that, of course, we're made of, as Einstein had said, everything's energy, and that is all there is to it. Also,
Exactly.
the world around us, from the trees to the animals and everything, and listening from them, finding stuff that could heal us in the same environment that's natural, and then combining that in just to like a way of life, even though we're operating in our own current modern environment. So that is where modern day shaman comes from.
Yeah, so the ways that I was given to work with in the jungle aren't available for a lot of people. And I've trained in many forms of physical therapies. I was on the Bay Area Sports Massage Team. Once I started really going into the physical therapies and training that which was working for my spine and body to heal, I went into many disciplines and wound up training with actually what I call, and my teacher does too, biocomputer technology. And this works with thought and combines all aspects of life and from inner and outer with the thought directed to your biocomputer. And with this you can make changes that are real and with outstanding results. And what's happened for me is everything that I trained in to get well is already in me. So it's like when you become a medicine man, you become the medicine. You quit using the medicine tools such as tobacco and other things that we work with in the jungle are no longer necessary. I still use them because they're part of my tool bag. But with this new quantum physics that's exposed on many fronts for us to work with, that's what I've done. Everything's melded into an alchemical, energetic approach to the individual, and the individual's families and business and everything can be benefited really with thought and intention. And so I don't have to bring all the tools. It's like I don't go into a business and start working with my tobacco. But energetically, I can work with a business and teams and communication, and it's been a good blend.
Great. And can you explain why it is important to get initiated by a true master shaman?
Well, boy, that's a hard thing other than to say. It's just that's how it is. It's like you want to learn your martial arts from a master. Well, that's a good question. Thank you, Mo. Why is it important to do that? I would say for me, I would like to speak from my experiences. I put my life in my teacher's hands. I trusted him with my life. And a guide such as the shaman will take you to the places that you need to go. And with their guidance, you can walk, actually on your own. They're there to guide you, but you do it on your own. But there's this extreme trust that is built. And so when you get into these tight places in your inner world where, things are needing to integrate and some things need to leave that don't feel comfortable, then to be with somebody that can't hold that space or you don't have a trail or a lineage to follow, I wouldn't want to be there. And I've seen many people who have taken that journey, and then you can see the mistakes, or I don't know if there are any mistakes, but maybe you can shortcut your path to the benefits that you're looking for, is how I'd like to phrase that. And for me, it's a matter of deep trust. It's like when you're training with a martial artist, with a master, you have to really trust this individual, because you're experiencing things that can, ultimately be dangerous if done by somebody who's not trained.
I agree. That's a great way to explain it, Bart. You definitely need a master or a guide or a teacher along with your along your path that you could trust. And whether that be in martial arts, I'm also a martial artist, Korean art called Hapkido, and I do have a master that I call master. And there's this respect and this training that is passed down, and what he tells you to do, you do it. And I've had some injuries during that time, but it's expected, when you deal with them, and it's getting it's getting through that, that makes it all worth it, and understanding the lessons and why everything's done the way it's done. So just like it's done in martial arts, it's done in shamanism and Gnosticism and different secret societies that you have out there that, of course, are not related to shamanism, but they involve similar Gnostic teachings. Can you explain what it's like to be initiated, or the experience you had there in Peru, without breaking any type of secrecy?
Well, thank you for the respect of not breaking any secrecy, because that's one thing that we never talk about, our experiences, because it's just our experience, and one experience could, if somebody thought, well, that would be my experience too, then they would go into their head and maybe create an experience that's similar. So I would like to just say that it was more than I bargained for, and not more than I could handle, obviously, because I'm here, but I had no clue what was going to happen, or what eventually would take place in my life because of that choice. And I'm very grateful that I said yes. And as I said, I thought he was asking all of us, but I was the only guy on that trip that he asked to do that. But, my teacher had told him, he'd worked with me for a long time. And so, I was, grateful, and also it was, humbling, very humbling to be in the presence of that much power and love. And,
Is ayahuasca at all involved in this process?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, I know everybody that goes on those trips. I know ayahuasca's this popular thing in the alternative culture right now, and people that don't understand it, of course, are doing it. And I know a lot of people are hearing about it. So I don't know if you could touch on that at all, not in regards to, your initiation process or the experiences you had, because you explained that, and it totally makes sense that you do not want to implant any false realities that would be your reality into someone else's mind, and they, want to go on this similar path or something. Because I know there might be some people that are really interested in this, or they are on this path, that are going to be initiated or to ayahuasca. So can you explain what ayahuasca is?
Well, it's, as it's been explained to me, it's a combination of plants, we'll just say that, all along the Amazon. Tribes were introduced to this all, as the story goes, at the same time by the same boat people from the sky. So this information was delivered, and it's a mixture that's brewed by the shaman. There's different ways of brewing it, and there's different mixtures. So it's something that can go through the body, and unlike other shamanic tools I had used before that, when I used that one, I knew that I was strengthened by it, and I knew that real transformation had taken place, and I knew that I'd finally found somebody who was an actual shaman. And not that my first teachers weren't, but they were not in this lineage, and they weren't in they had done more of a Western combination, psychotherapy combination with the medicine plant. So it's something that drinks, it cleans. In the jungle, people purge themselves by cleansing the inner world, and when that cleanse happens, it can come out both ends, as we say. And it's a wonderful tool. It's people have visions on it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Does ayahuasca take you to a bridge between the two worlds of spiritual and material?
Oh yeah, yes. The whole process when you're in the jungle, there's a special diet. You're preparing for days before you do. You're cleansing your body, and you're entering that world step by step by the time you engage with your teacher in the ceremony. Yeah, you become guided by the Lady Ayahuasca, the animals of the jungle, and yeah.
Right. It sounds like a alchemical experience where this ayahuasca takes you into that inner world that you're unable to see when you're, in the normal material reality, that you could temporarily go there, and what you might find, some people might like or might not like, but it's a spiritual cleansing of that stuff. And with the proper master, like you had said, in the lineage, a shaman who knows what he's doing in common sense and common terms, that they could help you along this path and make sure that you're okay and you make it through it okay. And obviously you have. I'm sure that experience had opened a lot of spiritual doors for you.
Yeah, it's like when I first got introduced to that, and I knew this was the real deal. I just asked my teacher, what do I do? And he says, nothing. It's transferred, and you'll know when you know, and that's how it is. I knew when I knew. My teacher told me, don't move, this is it. And it's like I knew, and it took place, and it was 2 main times, but over many years. So that's the other thing is you touched on, lots of people are getting involved. It's a popular thing to do, and it's something that, in the wrong circumstance or I would just invite people to be very careful, and be very clear that they're with people that are in integrity and are well vetted. I was lucky, this was a long time ago before it was popular, so there wasn't this draw for the big crowds and the big money. And so what happened, there was a lot of people who really didn't have the intention were calling themselves able to do that, but it was a money thing. And so my teacher wound up having to correct a lot of circumstances. That became most of his work.
So people would go to him after they would go to an alleged self-proclaimed shaman that didn't know what they were doing or had the lineage, and he would have to correct them and clear them of all those energies. And
yeah, because it's different when you're in the jungle, and the people from the jungle have the jungle in their system, and they're cleaned and bathed and held in safety in the jungle's energy. But you go down there, and maybe you go on a trip, and you go down there and you spend a week or something like that with people you don't know, and people you've never met, and then you have to come back to your regular life without any integration or preparation. And maybe they did good work, but if there's nothing to for you to continue your work with and have a support, then big changes can happen. And then I just would like to enforce that it's good to have a good support system and good feeling and good understanding of what you're getting involved with is what I'd say.
You gave a perfect explanation.
Okay.
No, I think you gave a perfect explanation, and I'm glad you touched on that. And the reason I wanted to, Bart, and I know you were a little reluctant at first, is just to educate some people out there about it and the process and the importance of making sure that if you are thinking about this, that you go to the right shaman who has the proper lineage, and it's not just about money, because certain bad things could happen and so forth. So, again, I don't want to scare people, and again, I don't want to encourage people. It's all our own paths, and I know you're not doing that either. So, again, I thank you for answering those questions.
You're welcome. And, yeah, I mean, this was a path that came my way, and I had a wild life growing up, and a lot of things happened in the 60s and 70s that were in my system, and this path was a path for me, and it's a path that I don't think everybody needs. I think that the world's changing, and that's what I'd like to say about like the work I do now, and the fact that I did it for 25 years. It's in my system, but it's in the world system too. I don't think that people are doing extreme harm by spreading this. I just because the plant intelligence is what's guiding it anyway. It's just the preparation and the knowledge that one would need and the experience going into it. I just see that the world is changing, and like the teacher said to my teacher, he said, "We're teaching you this because the illness isn't here; it's up there where you come from." And that illness that's been in the northern hemisphere, of course, we've seen it for centuries taking place, is separate from the plant world. But there's many wonderful people with many great experiences, and bringing this work through them in many different avenues. And I have my way, but
and can you?
I see.
Go ahead, Bart. No, I'd like you to finish.
I was just going to say, I also don't want to, as you don't want to scare people, I also don't want to just across the board say that there's a lot of charlatans out there either, that there's other ways of doing it, and that I trust the energy and I trust the plants. I would just say that I would not cheat myself. You know, if you want to step into that arena to work that way, then that's what I'd say. I wouldn't cheat myself. I would spend my time and my money on getting the very best I could. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great way to end it there. You talked about shamanism being different in the Western cultures, and of course I would assume Eastern and the Amazon and Australia natives, they're all different. Can you explain how this shamanism is different in these cultures? I mean, of course you don't have to give us a whole history.
Well, if I knew all the different shamanic cultures, I could tell you. I'm up here in Scandinavia, and I've been exposed to the Nordic and Sami, and some from Russia.
If you could touch on that, that'd be great, Bart.
Yeah, well, their world is obviously different. Yeah, and they don't have the same type of medicine plants that they use in the jungle. And as far as the difference, I think that there's more of a focus on external tools than what I was exposed to with the utilization of ayahuasca and the internal tools of the jungle. So
would you say that more like kind of the Western cultures, like here in America, just the materialistic tools and man-made tools is what you're saying?
Well, I mean, even like the drums of the North American Indian or the Nordic shamans, they're using a lot of drumming and stones and man-made tools and artifacts and that are empowered by the shaman. And I would say that's it. It's different tools, different environment, but the same intention. And basically, I would venture to say it would be the same results, which is really it's about becoming whole, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense, you know, and they wouldn't have access, of course, to the same plants and herbs or whatever that would be found in the South and the jungles and so forth.
But they do have the mushroom and all that they use. So.
My most spiritual experiences have been with what they call magic mushrooms. Definitely, I've done that quite a few times, and I've done the LSD, which I wouldn't recommend, but I've tried that in my younger years, and I didn't have anybody with me, and fortunately I made it through all those various experiences, but I would say some of my most spiritual experiences and best have been on mushrooms. I've never tried ayahuasca, but I would definitely like to try it someday under the proper guidance. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing, the work you're doing there in Sweden, and I'm sure over the internet and so forth. Do you use any type of clearing energies or internal arts in helping people?
Yeah, everything I do is kind of been put in the soup, so to speak, and I use a method of quantum healing with thought and energy, and I use the knowing of the structure and the energy pathways that come from Chinese medicine and Chinese martial arts and Japanese, but the roots, I believe, more extensively studied and founded in Chinese, Hindu, but I use food, I use herbs, I use energy essences, I use meditations. I'm a Tai Chi practitioner, teacher, and I've made simple programs for people who don't have a lot of time in their life to get the benefits and the value of these arts. And then I also have a background in my own process that I wound up facilitating many trainings and working with what's called Hakomi psychotherapy. I didn't do the formal training, but I did my own process and was present to many workshops, and then I wound up training with one of the first teachers of that who had taken it to another step. And I did another process with him and then promoted him in Scandinavia once and assisted with that. And I've kind of brought all these different approaches, which are non-invasive, safe, and about awareness together in an approach that, again, it's not something people want me to write a book about it, and I'm venturing into that, but it's in real time and experience, so of how I work and the approach. That's how I got it. I mean, I read the books, but I got it through my own process and then being around the masters. So it's something that, I wanted to say something. Some of the best shamans in the world are mothers, right?
Definitely.
They've got the child with them. They're transferring information, and they're through experience, the child's gathering all that it needs to know, hopefully, to take care of themselves and be in the world. And I guess that would dovetail into why I see a need for work, and not just me, but you just see it in the world, that people are really looking out now for, they want to improve their own experience, but also there's a real sincere movement for people to give their children the best now, and not necessarily the best school or the best education, but the best experience for them to be able to manage their world, their life. And that doesn't necessarily come from school. And so in the system that we have now, children are taken away from their parents to go to school at these developmental ages where not taken away, but through the necessity of work and scheduling and things like that, that connection is broken. And I think it's kind of funny, they wind up with a group of kids their own age trying to figure things out, and there's so many that the teachers are often more about control than they are about being able to provide individual assistance.
The proper nurturing. I agree. I see that every day. I have kids in school here. I know the teachers definitely have good intentions, and it seems like they start out that way, but over years of the low pay and, the stress of managing all the kids, they don't get the proper care and teaching and attention. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of sad. But as fathers and mothers, I like how you mentioned that, mothers are some of the best shamans around, definitely. And I would like to venture to say fathers as well. If we do step up and do our jobs as fathers and patriarchs of our family, we can too lead a successful life. Yeah. Where we're operating in these cultures where we live, whether that be in Sweden where you're at, Bart, or here in Southern California, that we can be modern day shamans or Gnostics and still, have our jobs and, our kids go to school and so forth, and we don't lose our spirituality.
Absolutely. And thanks for bringing the men in there. I was leaving myself out.
No, I know you would have, of course. I mean, that's primarily what we were talking about. So it's great that you brought up the woman, because, you think of shamans and it's just, guys, a bunch of men or priests or whatever, and there's no women involved, but that's not true, right?
No. In my tradition, the Shipibo tradition that I was in, my teacher would not work without his woman. It wasn't his wife, but she was there beside him doing other work, and my teacher always had his wife with.
Is your wife involved
Yeah.
at all?
No. She did her own work, yet she came in well along my path and joined it for a short time and got what she wanted. She was actually growing up in Sweden as she did. She was with horses and in a very natural environment without the challenges that I had grown up with. And it's been kind of a funny thing for a kid from Pasadena growing up with all the racial violence in Vietnam, moving to a country that hasn't seen war for 200 years. And they have crime starting now because they're bringing in all these refugees from all these war-torn countries, and they're not settling very well. But in her day and age, it was like Pippi Longstocking, the movie.
It's great you bring that up, Bart. No, the difference in cultures, because I talk about that sometimes on my blog, Gnostic Warrior, about that it's almost in our DNA sometimes. So when we come from a culture that might be in war for hundreds and hundreds of years, of course, if we only been acclimated to society 25 years, 50 years, or 100 years, like a lot of us here in the Western countries, I mean, we've been through wars all throughout history, even in the recent 100 years, that we're going to be a little bit more violent than, of course, the people in Sweden, as you had mentioned, haven't seen war for 200 years.
Yeah.
How's it in Peru?
Oh, people are people. I mean, there was the one thing about down there can be jealousies and things like that. And as I said, when we were there, jealousies between shamans and things like that take place.
Gotcha.
I didn't witness any violence in Peru or anything like that, but we heard the helicopters at night and we heard the stories, because of all the illegal drug trade down there.
Gotcha.
But the people were beautiful and sweet and soft, and so Petra didn't have much to clear as I had, and she's wonderful with horses, and that's a form of work that is just. I do a lot of work with the healing of horses and riders, but she is somebody that takes the connection and her connection and understanding and facilitates people really getting a great experience in connecting with themselves through horses. So she came with this, and I think I shared just a little story when we met. I didn't advertise to anybody anything I did. I didn't tell people I played guitar, but I just did my thing. And when she found out what I did, she goes, when I was 14, I knew I was going to meet somebody who did this type of work. I go, you're in Sweden at the age of 14 and you're going to do this. Yeah, she goes, I knew it. I go, okay. So she's a little more advanced in some ways than I was.
That just makes perfect sense that you would have to go through maybe a lifetime of work before you'll reach that state where you're happy with perfection if we ever reach it, because I know it's a lifelong path of evolving and trying to operate in this culture that we live in now, whether you're in Sweden, Canada, UK, or America. What are some of the most common obstacles you find with people for personal development and achieving a higher state of mind and energy levels?
Another good question. That's one thing I was hitting on about the children not being able to be in the families and be in that type of tribal setting where there's more freedom and individual attention. That a lot gets mistrained, so to speak, at the early ages, misguidance. There's not, and then that comes to me in different forms and different stages with different people, but often there's that loss of self and belief that started at those times of the world and who they are and how they fit in. So that's a common, misinformation, misguided.
So a lot of people, you basically are saying just simply are lost. They have no training from a proper patriarch or a father or a mother. They kind of just left on their own in this culture to go to school, go to work, and that's it.
That's a lot of it. And then, you got to look at it. There's a lot of alcoholism in the world. I moved to Sweden, and there's a lot of alcoholism in Sweden and Finland and Norway. I hope nobody gets mad at me for saying that, but it's obvious. But it's a culture that's built on that. Europeans drink a lot of. They have that in their culture. It's actually in Sweden. It was a matter of survival with the cold too, and I was told maybe even as much as 50, 60 years ago, you'd go to work and the boss would give you some vodka, for breakfast, to keep you warm and the circulation going. So, but anyway, there's all the things that are challenging in every country. There's drugs, there's alcoholism. I also work with cleansing bodies of a lot of heavy metals. Vaccinations are a big problem. They get into the brain and the nervous system, and the heavy metals that are with those, they can cause a lot of challenges. And maybe people will argue with me on that, but the work I do, I see results, so that's all I can say. And then we're dealing with pollutants and pesticides and fire retardant chemicals. All these things get into the system, and these toxins and things slow down the neurological impulses, and the thinking processes can get confused. And you combine that with, we have a culture that is very focused on consuming and being a rock star or a sports star or whatever. With the advent of smartphone, video, and the computer age, this is one of the biggest challenges I see, and it's real. I work a lot with children that are from the Game Boy era, and now they're 21, 22, 26, and literally some very talented people, and they can't come out of their room. I have this one client I started working with, but it was very short visited because it was unable to be addressed properly because the family was afraid. He's a shut-in. He's an artist with a scholarship to a great university, and you can't get him out of his room. He's on video games. They feed him at the door. They don't know what to do. And I have many children. In fact, my children, I'm having trouble with monitoring, and I've actually started a complete training for myself with family systems to better my own experience as a father and how to deal with these type of distractions. And I like what Terence McKenna said. He said, we know we ingest our culture. We used to project our culture. We used to create our culture. And now it's getting fed to us. I think this is a challenge because then there's these inability to connect on the human level for a lot of these kids now. And like everything, it's got its benefits, and it's something new, and it's something that is challenging. So I would just say one more thing.
Sure.
One of the worst things I run into, and I do a lot of cleaning with, is amalgam for the teeth, because 20 years ago or even some longer, they discovered the dangers in Europe of amalgam in the teeth, and then they got it taken out. But when they got it taken out, they got a lot more in. And I mean, the dentists up here in Norway and Sweden, they didn't come up all the time, so they just come up and they drill out the teeth and fill them full of amalgam just as a precaution. So I have clients with railroads. They had railroads their teeth were just solid as amalgam. They pulled them out, and then all of a sudden they've got whatever, multiple sclerosis. They've got all these things that are named by the medicine, but when you get the metals cleaned out of them, and they do a lot better. So that's the other thing.
We had a recent podcast here on Gnostic Warrior talking about the heavy metals and the toxins and so forth, and it's incredible. There's where we can be hit from all different sides, and I'm sure every person is unique. It could be their teeth, it could be them being alcoholics, them taking antidepressant, toxic-filled drugs, vaccines. It's crazy. Then, of course, just to the normal psychological stuff involved with media that you had mentioned and electronics. And I see that as a mind control type of thing that it's free will, of course, because we have the ability ourselves to turn it off or turn it on. And then over time, it starts to control us. So we have to definitely watch that, and being, a father And, the mothers out there, we got to watch out for our children, first of all, and then, of course, help other people as well. So I'm glad you had mentioned, Bart, and we're honest that you're working on that, because I'm working on it too. My kids are in public school. There's a TV in the house. I try to manage everything I can, but some of the things that I preach sometimes it's hard to keep control of. You got to keep working at it daily, especially if you're in society and you're not, unplugged living in the forest or the jungle or somewhere else. You have to kind of deal with this.
Yeah, I had a client the other day from Brazil, and she married somebody and moved to Norway, and they're divorced now. And she found me at this location I work at, and she was telling me about her life growing up and how she would run through the jungle naked. Her grandmother and her grandmother was a teacher, and so was her father. And every full moon they'd run through the jungle naked, cleaning in the moonlight and bathing in the river. And I was going, wow, what a childhood. I wanted to address something you said, though.
Sure.
I agree that these are tools that can be used as mind control, but anything can be that. It's I would like to look at things as more from the foundation. And what foundation do we have as parents and guides for our children? And what I saw was when I was done getting my life together from growing up, my dad was George Patton's forward observer for artillery, and they prepared me to go to Vietnam. I didn't go, but I didn't really have a choice if I got drafted. And so I had good guidance, though, and I had people that were involved in my life, and I didn't have a video to start my day with. And my parents were in my life; they were in my face and very strict and strong. But now it's almost like there's this rush of technology that's come over all of us, and there's no guidance. Even me, I had my own way of copycatting some of the ways I was raised and wanting to bring that same involvement as a father. But I realized I didn't have any skills, and I already knew my dad and mom didn't have many skills. That's why I spent a lot of time in therapy, but they did the best they could. And now it's like I think it's about an upgrade for everybody, and anything can be a mind control. It's really how are we guided to be good parents and actually work with children like this. I just learned this yesterday. One of my biggest things is studying the brain. I've had 9 major brain traumas and spinal injuries that I've completely rebuilt, and I'm doing really well now. It's been a long journey, but I found out that if you yell at children, there's been this study that their reptilian brain is the more prevalent one. It's there for survival when you're young, and the other tools of the larger brain or brains aren't developed yet. And if a child gets yelled at, then they react and respond from the reptilian brain, and that gets overdeveloped, and the other brain gets underdeveloped, and then there's a lot of reaction and drama in their life. And I've cleared a lot of that in my life, but it was like this answer to situations for me, because that I know that from my own experience, I got yelled at and quite loudly, and I could see behaviors, and I worked on those in myself, of how I would respond and react to the world and challenges. We usually do what our parents do. And although I didn't want to yell at my children on a few occasions, of course I did, but to see that was how it was, and I've been watching myself heal my own brain through martial arts and music, and I have some products I found that are really fantastic for me. And I've seen this development of this other side of me take place as I've trained my brain in a new way. And I just wanted to bring that out because it it answered so many questions for me because I was kind of in fight or flight my whole life. That reptilian, I'm out of here or I got to do something.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've sometimes been guilty of that. I come from a father who had definitely yelled at me, not every single day, but that's kind of how he had disciplined me, and there was not much communication going on, and I'm guilty of that myself, here and there. I don't like to do it. It sometimes just comes out, I don't like to spank or hit my children, so when the kids are fighting or my son's beating up my little daughter, I get sometimes, and I'm recording a show or something like that, I get a little upset, and I'll yell, get in the corner or whatever. And, but I try to explain to them, why I'm disciplining them and keep contact and keep the love. So it's a delicate balance. Good. And it's sometimes it's hard, but, I definitely know it's not good. I don't like how I feel during or after. You get this almost sick feeling when you yell or you lose your temper a little bit, and it's just not a great feeling.
Well, I think what it comes down to is the results aren't what we want, right? Correct. So for me, I'm doing something, I don't like the results in myself, and then I don't like the results that I'm getting from my children, because whatever you focus on will get bigger. I feel like I'd like to tell you a quick story because I did a retreat with a Buddhist monk, and he said, I never yell, don't yell at your children. Just look at them and go, oh, okay, and they'll get it, right? And I came home from that retreat, and my 4-year-old had hit the cat, and my 10-year-old came in and said, Daddy, Sebastian hit the cat. I said, okay, tell Sebastian to come here. He came in looking like Rocky Marciano boxer with his elbows up and his face turned down and growling at me. And I said, did you hit the cat? And he frowned at me and said, yeah. I said, oh, okay. All right, you can go. He came back a couple minutes later going in Swedish, förlåt me, Papa, I'm so sorry. That's what he said. Please forgive me. And I just hugged him. I said, it's okay, And he stopped doing it.
Wow.
He stopped hitting the cat. He's still hitting the dog. But the dog bit him the other day, so he's learning that way too. But, there's so much to learn out there, and there's techniques, and that's what I'm educating myself to that too. So it's a good time to be on the planet.
Definitely, and Bart, that all comes back to energy and having clean energy, and if you want to put that out in the environment, of course, you don't want to do that in your own household and so forth. So I love that, just kind of not raising any type of energy in yourself and just going, oh, okay, and it makes them really think, about the thing. And your son came back and he realized he did wrong, and so that's a cool little technique. And I'll try that myself. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Bart, let's, finish off with a couple questions I want to ask before you go here. If someone wants to become a shaman today, what do you recommend they do in order to become one or be initiated?
First, ask, why do I want to become one? I didn't go to become a shaman. That wasn't my intention. It just fell upon me. And so that's what I would ask. It's like I ask my students that want to become a Tai Chi teacher from me, why do you want to do that? There's utilizing these tools for yourself, and then there's a huge responsibility to take on being a martial arts teacher or a shaman or anything that you're going to do. Why do you want to do it? What's the draw here? If it's because they're drawn to it, it speaks to them, then if they say, I just want to help people, then I just say, that's noble and that's great, and first things first, you got to help yourself first and become proficient and efficient and competent before you ever do that. And I guess I'd like to share how it happened for me, because even though I got initiated, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought I was getting what I came for. And then for me, when the work started, and I had to do it. It's like I didn't have a choice. So anyway, that's why I was just saying, I think that's good for all of us. Why am I doing this radio show? Why am I doing anything? Why? Yeah.
For sure.
Am I doing it? Yeah.
What's next for Bart Smith? Are you going to write that book?
Yeah, I've been compiling it, and I guess what I'd say I'm doing right now is I'm getting all the most simple things out the page, so to speak, and in the hands of people that can help them now. And I'm working on a new website, and I've got my friend Denise. She's actually the reason I teach Tai Chi. She and her friends asked me in Las Vegas 25 years ago. I don't know, losing count, but 20 years ago. But she's put together a website where we're working together in the United States. So the next thing is to complete getting little bits and pieces of foundations together, get the book done eventually. But right now I want to get everything that's getting results. And I wanted to take that to the results page, because that's the thing that people want. They want results in their life. And I was a builder and a carpenter first, and I didn't do anything that didn't get the best results because obviously, you're working with reality and weights and stress and clients and their money. So, and in my own life, the happiness and joy that you were talking about and freedom, I would say, is when you can actually find things in your life that work, right? Not that are in theory or a school book or anything like that, but just like that Buddhist priest or monk helped me with my son. Oh, that really worked. I like that. That's a good tool. So I'm getting as many tools, foundational tools out that are based on my teacher's work, and I'll mention his name, Dr. Cam Yu, and he's a Shaolin master that came my way in '94 after I'd actually come back from training in the caves of China with another Qigong master, and I met this guy, and he blew my mind. And so my work is based a lot on his, and I'll get those tools done. I'm coming to the States. I'll be doing a tour in Arkansas and in Atlanta. And, yeah.
When are you coming to the States, Bart?
I'll be there on the 17th in Atlanta to the 28th, and I'm going to, it's going to be on the website. I forgot the name of the town in Arkansas. But it's kind of funny, too, because I'm just coming back to the States, and the woman who advertised me first as a Tai Chi master in Las Vegas contacted me when I started coming back to the States this year, and she's in Arkansas, and she wants to promote me again. And it's kind of gone full circle. I'm coming back home. And
connecting with some old friends, huh?
Yeah, do some work.
I know there's some people in the audience that would love to find out more about your great work, Bart. Is there a website that we can send them to?
You can go to my website, and there's the testimonies that are being organized right now. My other website was mainly in Germany and Sweden and Norway, so it's amoderndayshaman.net, and it's just spelled as it sounds, A Modern Day Shaman, SHAMAN.net. And then I do one-on-one, people call them healing sessions, and I also have developed packages and programs for coaching with people if they want to go long-term with me. And I am looking in the future of taking some groups down to Brazil, probably. Peru's not happening right now. It's still not with my teacher. So we're going to probably do that in the future too.
Okay, great. And that would be a full-on initiation, or do you offer initiation yourself? Can you do that?
No, I don't do that.
Okay.
It's not that it wouldn't be something that I would offer. It's just if people want to come down and work. Yeah. I think the initiation is that we become who we are, and comfortable with who we are at where we are, and then I think that's the initiation, whether it's done that way or another way. So this is just another adventure that I take people on.
No, and I love that. I think we'll end it on that. That's a great way to end this podcast. It was great talking to you, Bart. You answered a lot of tough questions, but also have educated us on a lot about shamanism, though I learned a lot myself. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mo. It's very nice to meet you and talk to you. I appreciate your questions and your approach. Very nice to talk. Yeah?
You're welcome. Thank you. Take care, buddy.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Get your website now for only $79 at WeCreateWebDesigns.com, or get a logo for your brand at WeCreateWebDesigns.com. Mo made $1 million with with this website, so get yours and visit WeCreateWebDesigns.com. They're the experts you need, and they're waiting for you at WeCreateWebDesigns.com.